Welcome back. Another quick video for today, more in the news front, but it's something that kind of plays into the previous video on pickerel and incident response. The CISA, which is a government entity that kind of governs and is a watchdog over cybersecurity, experienced a breach. One little input here is this kind of just demonstrates that nobody is beyond a breach. Even the most secure organizations or security conscious organizations can be breached in one way or another. Now, CISA has been very open about this, which kudos to them for that. Back on May 15th, they began an internal incident response when an investigative reporter inquired about internal CISA, Amazon, AWS government cloud keys and other information being made available in a public repository. Well, that's not good. And in fact, it actually came from, if I recall correctly, Brian Krebs reported on this initially and actually made a call. He reported there were dozens of internal CISA credentials, including the Amazon Web Services thing, all out in a GitHub repository for 6 months before Krebs notified them of this. And as he goes on to say here, which is part of the reason why I'm making this video, is experts say the gaps identified in the agency's initial response provide important lessons that all security teams should observe or absorb. And 100% agree with that. So jumping back over here, they go through their incident response process. Once they had received the information of the exposure, the Office of Chief Information Officer took swift and comprehensive action to mitigate any exposure. That would be in pickerel your identify. It's been identified. Unfortunately, this did not come from inside. It came from an external source, which is even worse, really. That they didn't catch this themselves. They worked on eliminating public exposure and preventing further harm. They reported public repository was taken offline. They did save a copy of it for later analysis. They also took their development environment offline and reset all their credentials, which again, if you'll think back to the pickerel, that goes toward containment and recovery. Whoever it was who exposed the keys then had their system access revoked, which you can see right here. So they took that extra step and after they had begun their investigation, they moved on and revoked whoever it was that put that out there on GitHub. Then they go through some other steps here. Now, one thing to keep in mind is they go through and this is basically their lessons learned section of the report. What can be strengthened? So here we have them talking about lessons learned. So some things for us to keep in mind. If you have public repositories, you better have some pretty good security controls in place on them because this isn't the first time some internal documentation, some internal credentials popped up on GitHub. It happens fairly frequently. So if your company is utilizing GitHub in any way, shape, or form, you'd better do a risk assessment on that and find out what's going on over there. Again, monitor for secrets in repositories. No repository should contain secrets, it says. Yet, it did make it out there. So they rotated all secrets and also created an action plan. That's part of the lessons learned, remember, to improve management of developer secrets. Very good. Now, this is the one that really keyed me off is build comprehensive playbooks. So in this case, they had missed creating a GitHub Cloud playbook. Now, this is CISA, remember, the federal organization that governs sort of as a watchdog over cybersecurity incidents. They had overlooked creating a GitHub Cloud playbook. And again, like I just said, does your organization use GitHub? If they do, is there a playbook ready to go in case something leaks out there or something gets stolen and then put out there or an insider threat put something out there? You've got to have playbooks for these kinds of things. Now they all move on and they say they also encourage organizations to fine tune playbooks following any response. And CISA is doing that exactly. Simplify reporting channels right here. How are incidents reported in your organization? That should be laid out in your incident response plan too. In this instance, let's say it was Brian Krebs that called them and told them this. Who did he call? And then where did it go from there? How is an incident reported and then escalated within your organization? Are all your employees up to date on that escalation plan and what should be done if they receive a call from someone like Brian Krebs? I actually do run a tabletop exercise dealing with this exact scenario. Your company gets a call from Brian Krebs. He's reporting that information that he has seen and gathered details a possible breach to your network. What are your next steps? What do you do? And oftentimes the first question that the company asks is, well, how would he get hold of us? Does he look it up on Google, do a Google search, and then call that help desk number or that public number that's out there? And then where does it go from there? Track that internally so it's all laid out in your playbook, and train your employees in it so they know if they get a call like this, who to call. Bolster development environmental guardrails. You have to consider these developer environments. I've actually dealt with a few cases involving developer environments. And oftentimes developers are kind of like cowboys. They're given admin rights. They are basically left on their own. If you try to install an EDR in their systems, they complain because it eats up resources. They're unable to do their development practice. No. They need to understand security and abide by best security practices no matter what it is they're doing. And those things can be called guardrails. That's part of preparation. Again, it also goes to detection. If you can't see into an environment, how do you ever know if anything's going wrong in there? And finally, they list this out, ensure cryptographic key readiness. And that's an important part of cybersecurity. CISA probably is being very truthful here. They have some very complex systems and interconnections with a lot of third parties, whether they're federal government agencies or industry partners. And so dealing with that whole key exchange created some time problems and something that they probably really need to work on and include in their playbook. That's part of knowing how your network operates, what functionalities it possesses, and what third parties have access to it. Remember, when Target got breached, it wasn't Target itself that originally got breached. It was a third-party HVAC company who had gotten access to Target's corporate environment because they were putting air conditioning units in, and that access was never revoked. Well, hackers attacked that third party, found that access, and then took advantage of it. So this whole CISA breach is really instructive and educational, and I hope you pay attention, especially if you're a business owner, and take some heed to this, because it is important to learn. These are lessons learned. Learn from these, apply them to your own environment, and make sure that you're protecting your company. Thank you. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and like this video and pass it along so others can learn. Have a great day.